The biggest surprise to me had to be the Medicaid components. Some of this stuff we know is going to have to be negotiated for the next couple of weeks, if not month, at least a month from here, given the disparity between the House and the Senate. But the Medicaid cuts really have a constituency of no one. I'm not sure exactly how they're planning to thread the needle just in the Senate, let alone the House with this package. They obviously are on a hunt for revenue. The tweaks that they made, I think, based off our estimates, which come from my colleague Spencer Pearlman, suggest that we're looking at like $200 billion in additional revenue from Medicaid. But I want to be clear, this cuts off 35% of the entire state of Alaska's Medicaid recipients. And that's not even the most recent analysis and accounting from CBO. So they're going to have some serious problems with this piece. That really surprised me. So
talk to us about, is this, I guess, the next date that we're all waiting for? Is it kind of a July 4th? That's when the Senate wanted to get something done. Is that still on the table?
You know, I just can't get my head around July 4th. I understand optically and emotionally it sounds good. It's a feel-good story to have this done by the 4th of July. But the only way that members of Congress operate and act is with a sword hanging over their heads, and that's the debt ceiling. So last week, CBO actually pushed out the debt ceiling deadline to mid-August to mid-September. I think that's why you're seeing Ron Johnson, the senator from Wisconsin, saying, you know, we're going to be negotiating this all the way through August, is because they don't have a hard and fast deadline until they need to hike the debt ceiling, at which point the debt ceiling will be, what, like $42 trillion and get us through November of 2026. So they've got a long way to go, I think.
Going to my world, and that's the energy world, I was really interested in how wind and solar got no relief in this. I can imagine, and neither did hydrogen. I can imagine that the alternative energy lobbyists were going hardcore for weeks in terms of the senators. And I'm just wondering, like, why? Like, why keep tax breaks for utilities and purchase power agreements for wind and solar, but not for consumers?
Right. And I think, Alex, you're really nailing my sentiment right now. I'm trying to talk with as many staffers as I can to understand the why behind this package. The IRA tax credits are extremely popular in Republican states specifically. 70% of the flow is going to those districts. So that is really important for a lot of senators who are up for re-election next cycle. I'd highlight Tom Tillis most particularly on this one. I think that the IRA tax components need to be adjusted from here. It's plain from the fact that the SALT cap, for example, is not even addressed by this package. It's just kept at the 10K rate, that they're going to do more tweaks. So I'm expecting some pretty substantial changes to the IRA side, to the residential stuff. I mean, we knew some things were going to come out, like the electric vehicles tax credit is standard operating procedure. We knew that that was going to come out. And there's some understanding, to get to your specific question, that there's a duplicative component to the residential and commercial building tax credits that already exist at the state level. So why does the federal government need to layer them on? So that's one piece. But really, I can't thread the needle and get you the votes for this package right now.
Universities, kind of surprised to me. They came out a little bit of a winner here. Reduced excise tax on university endowments. That's a big one. Where did that come from?
Yeah, that's a big one. There's actually a lot of really random stuff that is and is not in this bill. The university piece obviously is very much at odds with the public projection that the administration has taken towards universities. And I think that is pretty widely supported by Republican lawmakers and voters. Obviously, the senators are indicating that maybe they're not all the way there yet. But there's other pieces that are not in this bill. Like there was a proposal to tax cruise lines that you'll maybe remember Commerce Secretary Lutnick came out in wholehearted support for. But again, you know, not to harp on Alaska, I don't know why I keep talking about them, but you know, that would have been a hit to Alaska. So they chose not to use that component to generate revenue, but they did choose to cut the Medicaid stuff and kick, I think the latest estimate is 16 million people off Medicaid. So there's a lot of confusing pieces here. I'm really just trying to thread the needle to find the 51 votes for this package right now, and I can't get to it.
Okay, so then what happens? So you can't get the 51 votes. We don't even know if the House Republicans are going to like what this bill is. So what happens now?
Yeah, so, you know, let's talk about maybe the underreported component here, which is the potential that this doesn't pan out. We still have 30% odds that they kick this into into December. Senator Lindsey Graham is the chairman of the Budget Committee, and he's being really clear that Republicans have 4 bites at the apple on reconciliation. And he's entirely correct. They don't need to have this entire comprehensive package ready for prime time, especially with Israel, Iran, and the $175 billion in this package that goes to military preparedness, another $150 billion that goes to immigration. There's a lot of ways for Republicans to operate for the next year and a half going into the midterms that doesn't have to be this one big package. So I think there's going to be some renewed discussion, especially as we're talking about delays for forward progress, about maybe breaking this bill into pieces. The $5 trillion debt ceiling hike alone loses you Rand Paul's vote. So there had already been conversations about cutting that back down to $2.5 trillion and maybe passing these bills piecemeal. That is an option. It's a low odds prospect, but it's something to be mindful of as an investor.
So just 30 seconds on that, raising that tax ceiling by $5 trillion. I can't do that on my balance sheet, but doesn't seem to be a problem for the federal government.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I had that kind of checkbook. That'd be pretty fantastic. This is a absolute record by a magnitude that I can't even do the math on. I think the last time we increased the debt ceiling by a specific dollar figure, it was like 1.2 trillion, and that got us almost a year and a half worth of functionality. Now we're talking about a $5 trillion hike, which, by the way, is $1 trillion more than the House has authorized, and it only gets us through the midterms. That's pretty exorbitant. And that really speaks to the sheer volume of deficit increases that's in this package. And it is also, the most regressive and substantially underwater bill that has passed. It's a negative 29% approval right now. That's pretty rough.